Do a series of videos on AP Microeconomics. I'm actually going to walk through the 2005 AP Micro Test. If you need to find a copy of this, there's a website, apsurvival.weebly.com, where you can find this exact test. As I did with the macroeconomics one, I'm going to kind of run through each of these problems, kind of talk through how I would think about them. I would suggest also you pause the video at each question, try answer it yourself, and then hit play again to listen to the explanation. Or if you don't need the explanation because you know you got it, just move right on. And so I'm going to try to do this a little faster than I did with the macroeconomics videos, but I don't think I have anything else more to say, so let's roll. A professor hires two aides, assigning them the tasks of reading student papers and of typing lecture notes on a computer. One of the aides, Ben, can read 1 page of student papers per minute, or type 50 words of lecture notes per minute. And the other aide, Anne, can read 3 pages of a student paper per minute, or type 60 words of lecture notes per minute. Which of the following statements is true? So pause the video, see if you can solve it. And here's how I would go about solving it. I actually need a little bit of space to write here. I would draw a little chart here, and I would say I've got Ben and Anne, and they can do, basically what are the 2 things they can do? They can read papers, or they can type notes. And we got, always when I have a problem like this, I always turn it into how much can they produce. So if they had said, they can read 1 page per minute, that would mean they can produce 1 page per minute. If it had said it takes them 3 minutes to produce a page, then I'd arbitrarily choose a number of minutes, and I'd be like, okay, well, in a half an hour he can read 10 pages. But anyway, this one does tell me exactly how much they can produce. So he can read 1, he can type 50, and can read 3 or type 60. So Anne clearly has the absolute advantage in both things. But the real question, of course, is who has a comparative advantage. And so that is simply what you give up divided by what you get. So Ben's opportunity cost to read is to give up 50 divided by 1 equals 50. Anne's opportunity cost would be 60 divided by 3 equals 20. So Anne has the comparative advantage in reading, and of course that would mean then that Ben has the comparative advantage in typing. So now let's look at our answer choices. Anne has a comparative advantage in reading, yes, and Ben has a comparative advantage in typing. Correct. Moving on. Number 2. According to the graph above, if a country is currently producing at point X, the opportunity cost of producing another consumer good is, well, if we are at this point here, in order to go from 3 to 4, I have to give up 20 producing another, one more consumer good, I'm giving up 20 capital goods. I misread that for a second there. To alleviate a financial crisis, a university increases student fees. This action will increase university revenues if the price elasticity for demand for university education is, well, the only way that's going to work is if I remember, elasticity is a percent change in quantity over percent change in price. And we're really looking at how much does that change. Well, if If you increase prices by, say, 10% and quantities reduced by 10%, well, then I don't get any additional revenue. But because revenue is just price times quantity there, if prices go up by 10% and I only lose, say, 5% of quantity, then my total revenue is going to go up. And so that is a case of the demand being inelastic. Meaning that there was a small change in quantity compared to the change in price. Which of the following will occur if the government imposes a price ceiling below the equilibrium price of a good? Well, if they price it below, I'm just going to quickly draw a demand and a supply, then that ceiling is going to in fact be an effective ceiling because it's not going to allow the price to get up to the equilibrium price. So what is going to happen is that we are going to have a lot more demanded than there is supplied. There's the quantity demanded at that price, and there's the quantity supplied at that price. If I've got more demanded than supplied, that sounds like a shortage. There's my answer, C. There's a shortage in the market. Ooh, which of the following will decrease the demand for beef? Ooh. Well, if there is an increase in the price of pork, and if an increase in the price of pork if pork and beef are substitutes, well, that would actually increase the demand for beef, because then people don't want to buy as much pork, they're going to buy the beef instead. It's not A. An increase in the price of potatoes if potatoes and beef are complementary goods, if those things are bought together. Well, if potatoes go up in price, the quantity of potatoes demanded is going to go down. And if people are buying fewer potatoes, if people are buying fewer potatoes, then they're going to want to buy less beef. I kind of like that answer. That decreased the demand for beef. And in fact, that is the correct answer, so I'm not going to look at the rest of those. Number 6. If the price of a firm's variable input increases, which of the following will occur? Well, if a variable input, for instance labor, if that price increases, then I'm probably going to I'm going to hire less of them, because the marginal revenue product that I get is going to be lower, or is going to be, let me say that right, the marginal revenue will stay the same, but the amount that I get is a little bit less. Sorry, I said that backwards. So yeah, if the price goes up, I'm going to probably decrease my level of production because it's more expensive for me to produce. The price of the good will not decrease in the short run. No, if the variable input cost goes up, that would actually be a decrease in supply, which would drive up prices. So no, the firm's marginal cost will decrease. No, it will increase because the cost went up. The firm's average fixed cost will decrease. No, the costs again went up, and more firms will enter the industry in the long run. No, it became more costly for me to do it, so no, firms are going to be making less profit, perhaps even losing money, and so no, we're not going to get more firms. Number 7. In a given time period, a person consumes more and more of a good or service, and as a result enjoys each additional unit less, and is willing to pay less for each additional unit. This behavior is consistent with the law of, that is the law of diminishing marginal utility. Utility is kind of that benefit that we get from additional items, and so it's definitely C. Diminishing marginal returns would be on the production side. This is on the demand side, and that's why the demand curve is downward sloping. Number 8. Which of the following best describes the relationship between the average total cost curve and the marginal cost curve? Well, let me quick draw it a second. here's my marginal cost, and the average total cost starts above it. It hits its lowest point at the marginal cost curve, and then it starts to go back up. So, I can't even, forget it. Try this again. ATC, there we go, average total cost. So if the average total cost is rising, that's happening, the marginal cost curve is above the average total cost curve, absolutely. When the cost of the next one is higher than the average has been, it's pulling the average up. So yeah, that's the correct answer. You can read through the other answer choices if you like, but none of those are correct. Number 9. One characteristic of perfectly competitive markets is that individual firms, they do not differentiate their products. They all offer the exact same thing. Are free to enter or exit an industry in the long run. Yes, that's important for perfectly competitive markets, that firms can come and go. In the long run, they do not earn an economic profit. They don't advertise to increase market share. That's what monopolistic competitive firms do. And they don't face a downward sloping demand curve. They actually face a flat one. Looks like that. Because demand also equals average revenue. Anyway, they face a flat one because they take the market's price, whatever the market came up with, and they can sell as many or as few as they want because at that price because they are just a small firm. All right, number 10. At the current production level of good X, price is greater than marginal cost. Which of the following actions would lead to greater efficiency? Alright, so right now, see if I can draw that. Here's the marginal cost, and the price that you're currently selling at is above the current marginal cost. So would decreasing the production of X help? I don't know why that would lead to a greater efficiency. If the price you're able to get is still higher than the marginal cost, I think you would want to increase your production of the good. So I kind of like that one. Maintain the current level of production. No, I think I could make more money if I increased my production. Again, because the current market price, it doesn't say market price, but I guess it's fair to assume this is a perfect competition. Anyway, if the price that I could sell it at is higher than my cost, well, then I might as well increase it to increase my profits. Imposing a tax on the production of the good, that is not going to lead to greater efficiency, and nor is a price floor going to be greater efficiency. So yes, I'm definitely going to go with B. Alright, number 11. Which of the following is true of a monopolistically competitive firm in long-run equilibrium? Well, in the long run, if the firm had been making profits, there's marginal cost. In the long run, other firms would enter the market, which would drive demand down, and they'd be producing. I'm trying to draw this as best I can here.
Why are you not listening to your mom?
Sorry about that. This is what happens when you have little kids at home. The marginal revenue curve would look like this. We would produce at this point here where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, which is at the point where average total cost equals the price that we're selling it, and you have no economic profit. So in the long run, is price greater than marginal cost? No. In the long run, the price that you're selling at is... Oh yeah, sorry, it is greater than marginal cost. Whew, I almost misread that there. And marginal revenue is equal to average total cost. No, marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. So price is greater than marginal revenue, and marginal cost is equal to average total cost. No. Price is greater than marginal revenue. Yes. And marginal cost is greater than, no, it's less than average total cost. Marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Yep, we always produce at marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. And price is equal to average total cost. Yeah, that is that point there. So D is the correct answer. Marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost. No, it's equal to. We always produce until marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Alright, a couple more and then I'll pause this video and we'll do do the next section in the next video. So, generally monopolies are considered inefficient because, they're inefficient. It's not inefficient for producing where marginal cost is less than marginal, well, let's see, let's think about this for a second. Monopolies will often produce at a point, very similar graph to what I just drew there. So if demand looks like so, marginal, oh man, my pen's not writing, marginal revenue, we're going to produce at this point here, that's marginal cost, and that's the price that I'm going to charge, and I'm going to have a huge profit. Okay. So am I going to produce at a point where marginal cost is less than marginal revenue? No, I'll produce where they're equal to each other. I'll produce at a point where marginal cost exceeds price. No, the marginal cost is below price. I'll produce more output than a competitive industry with similar costs. No, I'll produce less. I'm actually going to hold back production. A competitive industry would end up producing at this point over here. So no. Lead to an over-allocation of resources. No. The under-allocation. Oh, lead to an under-allocation of resources in the affected market. Yes, I'll go with E. Again, we produce too few. A profit-maximizing firm that sells its output in a perfectly competitive market hires 2 additional workers, calculating that the contribution to total revenue of the last worker hired just equals the extra cost of hiring that worker. 6 months later, the firm finds that the last worker's contribution to total revenue is less than the extra cost of hiring that worker. Which of the following may have occurred in the interim to explain this change? Okay, it sells in a perfectly competitive market, so let's see, and then what happened in their labor market, so they were hiring, this was the firm's demand and the supply based on a perfectly competitive market. So this is wage, this is quantity of workers, and now I'm hiring less. Well, that would be because the marginal revenue of either the wage rate went up, that would be possible, and then I would hire, then the cost of hiring it, the marginal factor cost here, that supply would be higher than it was before. It could be that for some reason the workers had become less efficient than the marginal revenue that I could make off them, or if the price in the market went down, the marginal revenue I make off of their work would also go down. So let's look at some of these options here. The firm laid off some workers. No. The market supply for the firm's product decreased. No, that would actually drive up prices, right? If the market supply decreased, we'd have prices going up. The market demand for the firm's product decreased. That would drive down the price, which would drive down the marginal revenue that we make off of our workers, which would lead to a decreased hiring. A technological advance increased the productivity of the workforce. that might drive down market prices, but that would also increase the productivity of my workers, so no. The firm negotiated new contracts with workers lowering wages. No, it'd have to be an increase in wages. So yes, I'm going to go with C. That was a little bit trickier one to think through. Number 14. Suppose that a large number of unskilled workers enter a nation's labor market. If the labor market is competitive, the number of unskilled workers hired and the wage rate will most likely change in which of the following ways? Okay, so let's just draw the whole market. Labor, demand, and supply with our wage rate, quantity of workers. So what happened there, if a large number of unskilled workers entered the labor force, well, that's going to decrease the wage rate. So let's cross off the ones that are not decrease the wage rate. And would that increase or decrease the number of skilled workers? Well, it looks like the quantity actually went up based on that graph, and so I'm going to say it will increase the number of unskilled workers but decrease the wage rate. And last one for this video, number 15. A society that wishes to achieve greater income equality is most likely to have which of the following? Not a regressive tax. A regressive income tax would mean that rich people pay less income tax than poor people, so that's not going to be greater equality. Neither is that. A progressive income tax would definitely move that direction. And if you had high estate and gift taxes, that would that means you're taxing, like when people die, or when wealthy people try to give their money to their next generation, you're going to tax at pretty high rate, which would basically prevent like one family from staying wealthy forever and ever. That's going to increase income inequality. So yeah, I like that one. The progressive income tax is good, but the low estate gift taxes would allow, again, family wealth to be passed on, and that's not going to achieve greater income equality. And a proportional income tax system, that's not going to be as effective as that progressive income tax system. Alright, I'm going to stop this video for now. I'll come back in a few minutes and do another set of these problems.